What is up, guys? This is Abir. I'm a philosopher in California, and today we're going to talk about the multidimensional nature of status. One of the things that I think has become a very important idea in the past couple of years is this idea of status, led by Jordan Peterson.
Lobsters live in dominance hierarchies.
I'm not saying that there were not other people talking about this, but Jordan Peterson really pushed that into the forefront, this idea that, status is a fundamental property of the animal kingdom. Human beings are basically animals, and so there's a system within us that connects us to this larger hierarchy. When the hierarchy of medieval times was destroyed, a new hierarchy took its place, which basically is money. In the past, maybe you had a caste system, or even in Europe or India, and there was a very clear hierarchy of like where you fit into the system. But when that system collapsed, then you have no real way of knowing what is the status of the person that you're interacting with. And this is super important because it's an existential question. Like you don't know what the risk is of the person that you're engaging. Are they somebody that could hurt you, could help you? There is something there that on some level, I think is just wired into how we are as people. It's almost unconscious. There's always this sort of unconscious filtering that's occurring. And so when Europe lost its hierarchy thanks to the Enlightenment, the French Revolution, things like this, that there was a sense of equality, like everyone is supposed to be the same. And so when you look at communist societies, that sense of hierarchy reemerged actually, but it reemerged in a political sense, where the political system now is what was creating people on top who had the power to even murder, to lock away people. So there's always a hierarchy. I would say it's a fundamental property of reality itself. It's not the only thing that's going on. I wouldn't say that hierarchy is the main ordering principle of every single thing. I believe in this quality called multidimensionality, which is something I'll explore in a video later. Luxury brands are, in a way, like the new way of showing your status. It's kind of like a hack. That's where you have, the 20-year-old who cannot afford anything, but they are still buying Louis Vuitton purse, because it immediately creates a feeling of status. I was at a restaurant the other day and I saw a woman who was taking the order of people, and she had a face mask, and the face mask had like a Louis Vuitton logo on it, and it was clearly like a fake. It wasn't like a real Louis Vuitton face mask. And it was just interesting that this woman found that this brand helped to create a sense of value for her, right? So if you look at luxury brands, fashion brands, they help to recreate status. When you see somebody who has a Ferrari or somebody who has like a really nice watch, and you're like, oh shit, you must have status, and there's an unconscious movement towards that person. We actually live in a multi-dimensional hierarchy, right? That the world we live in is not only a singular hierarchy, right? So I want to bring up the example of thought leaders. You can call a thought leader like Andrew Tate.
I surpassed you in nearly every metric that humanity can possibly measure. Not only am I richer than you, I'm also smarter than you and funnier than you and more charismatic.
Who's a very accomplished individual, a very amazing athlete, businessman, has built a great presence for himself in the world, and brings a lot of motivation to young men. But I think it's worth mentioning that the cosmos, right, the reality that Andrew Tate type of person exists within is not the only hierarchy that there is, right? I know people who hate luxury brands. They hate the very idea of fashion, right? And so if you walked in wearing like a Chanel t-shirt or had a Chanel bag, or you were like flaunting your Fendi slippers, they would actually look down on you. Isn't that funny? Isn't it funny, the idea that for one person, you're rocking your Fendi slippers and you're like, oh wow, that's so cool, you must be cool, right? But with the exact same object, right, you have this like physical object, and one person will see it as like high status thing, and the other person will see the exact same thing as low status. So what does that mean, right? That means that we live in a world which has multiple status hierarchies coexisting. Right? And this can be said to have emerged in what you could call post-modernity, that time in human thought, which many of us are still in. I would say the mainstream is still there, where there's multiple value systems that are coexisting. So that's where this idea of relativism comes up, right? Like if you are eating a French cuisine, a French dish, there's a focus on simplicity, simple ingredients. Maybe you just have a simple roasted lamb, or chicken and just some like vegetables. Compare that to Indian food, certain kinds of Indian food, which are very complex. There's maybe a lot of different ingredients. There's 10 different spices going in there. So it's hard to say like Indian food is better than French food objectively, but I may prefer Indian food or Californian food, or you may prefer like French fries and a burger. So that's that sense of relativism, which has to be accounted for in postmodernity. So if you're looking at somebody like Andrew Tate, who's like,
and taller and stronger, I'll kick the fuck out.
I'm the alpha male, I had cam girl websites, I was sleeping with girls who were doing pornographic cam shows, I won like boxing competitions. I think that there is no denying the accomplishment there, but I think it is very difficult to put that as a permanent hierarchy, because you will have some amazing, highly accomplished men, Barack Obama, let's say, it's like clearly a very accomplished man who may or may not value that kind of qualification. And you may have some very qualified women who may not appreciate that accomplishment, right? We all have room to create our own sense of hierarchy, which is rooted in who we are, right? So I'm not trying to like knock on Andrew Tate. I'm only bringing him up as an example that he has really succeeded in his vision of what is important to him, right? He took his imagination and really worked like crazy to make his dreams come true. And nobody can take that away from him, right? But I just want to leave the door open for some person who may have a different calling, right? Maybe for you, you're a conservative Christian, for example, right? And so sleeping with 10 different cam girls, people involved in pornography, like it's just not your status, it's not your hierarchy. And I think that's okay. When you loosen the vertical hierarchy, there begins to get created like a horizontal hierarchy, right? Because each person wants to maximize their chance of survival and reproduction. If you are in high school and there's an amazing jock, right, who's like big and strong and just killing it in the football team, and you only had a single hierarchy to compete in, you would have no choice but to go and be second best. But if you wanted to be the best, but you had different genetics, you were born differently, you're a little bit shorter, or maybe you're phenomenally creative, and so you start a rock band, and before you know it, you're getting all the girls because it's like you have this rock band that is super creative, and it's different, right? So I believe that society is this like constant tension between vertical and horizontal, and that's where I believe the whole enterprise of fashion comes in. And fashion really became a lot more important in the 20th century. It became way more important, you can say, maybe because of industrialization, but more than that, I think it's also because you had human equality, the rights of each human, liberty, liberation, strongly influenced by American culture, which was building off of the European Enlightenment. And so each person was free to find their own little niche, right? And that's where you have somebody who's like a goth, rock and roll goth, guy who's like got black nails and, just rocking out all the time. And you may have somebody who's equally accomplished and stylish who is just super straight edge. They're always wearing their polo and they're always wearing whatever straight edge thing that they're wearing, right? So you have vertical hierarchy and horizontal hierarchy, and each person is trying to find their place within it. And post-modernity is what is liberated. It's freed up a lot of energy because you have now smaller and smaller pockets of culture where people can really individuate, and you can have more diversity that's created, and that diversity helps to create this ceaseless competition, which eventually drives the whole enterprise of the human experiment or the human civilization forward. If you take this sense of multidimensional hierarchy, right? For me, Elon Musk is like, oh, so amazing, and yet the exact same guy with the exact same accomplishments is like the worst of the worst for somebody else. It's just funny. It's just funny, and that's where politics can get so nuts, because that sense of multidimensionality, multivalence, again, topics for us to explore in more detail later, but it's just like, to me, the same people who are my heroes are like the enemies to the other people. So super interested to hear your thoughts. Please leave me a comment. If you like what we're up to here, please subscribe, give us a like, and we'll catch you in the next one.